Okay, let me ask you something. Have you ever had a huge goal? I mean, something you were really, truly passionate about, but you found yourself doing literally everything except the actual work to get it done? If that sounds a little too familiar, trust me, you are not alone. Today, we're going to dig into this really strange puzzle, the paradox of the ambitious underachiever. I mean, just think about that for a second. Why would someone with these massive dreams, all this ambition, actively avoid the very work that would make it all happen? It just doesn't make sense, right? It's a total contradiction, and it's the paradox we're going to unravel today. All right, so to really get to the bottom of this, we first have to talk about that giant gap between knowing what you want and actually, well, doing it. So let's break down exactly what we mean when we say ambitious underachiever. Now, it's really important to get this straight. An ambitious underachiever isn't lazy. They're not unmotivated. It's actually the complete opposite. These are the people dreaming of writing the next great novel or launching a startup that changes the world. The key difference, though, is that they consistently get in their own way, not because they don't care, but because of these really deep underlying psychological hurdles. And this slide just captures that disconnect perfectly, doesn't it? I mean, look at the left side. The goals are huge, amazing things like start a business. But then you look over at the right, at the actual actions, organizing the desk, endless research. It's that classic pattern of being busy around the goal instead of actually doing the work itself. So what is going on here? What's the root cause of this bizarre behavior? Well, a lot of the time, it comes down to the incredibly high stakes of potential. Yeah, that thing that's supposed to be a gift, being told you're talented, that you have potential, can actually start to feel like a giant trap. It raises the stakes of everything to an almost unbearable level. And this quote just hits the nail on the head. See, the fear isn't just about failing at one little thing. It's this much deeper, much more terrifying fear of not living up to this huge, abstract idea of who you could be. All of a sudden, your potential isn't a gift anymore. It's this incredibly heavy weight you have to carry around. And this is the absolute core of it. The goal stops being just a goal. It becomes a test of your entire identity. If you try to write that novel and it isn't a masterpiece, your brain doesn't think, oh, I wrote a bad book. No, it thinks, I am a bad writer. I failed to meet my potential. I am a failure. I mean, with stakes that high, is it any wonder your brain starts looking for an escape hatch? So what's that escape hatch the brain finds? One of the most common ones is perfectionism. You know, we tend to wear it like a badge of honor, right? Like it's a sign of high standards. But in this situation, it's the absolute enemy of actually getting anything done. This is the paralyzing loop it creates. First, you set a bar that's just impossibly high. My first draft has to be perfect. Then, boom, you're immediately overwhelmed. I mean, how could anyone possibly meet that standard? So you delay, you procrastinate, because you're terrified of making something that's less than perfect. And what's the result? By not doing anything, you just end up reinforcing that secret little fear that maybe you weren't good enough to do it in the first place. It's a vicious cycle. And that brings us to a really crucial idea. We have to reframe how we think about procrastination. So often we see it as a character flaw, a sign of laziness. But in this context, it's not that at all. It's actually a very clever, even if it's self-destructive, defense mechanism for your ego. This is the subconscious logic running this show. It's a powerful little loophole, isn't it? By putting things off, you create a built-in excuse before you even start. You can always tell yourself, oh, of course it wasn't my best. I only had a day to do it. Your potential, your self-image as someone who could have been great, is kept safe, untested, and intact. So what your brain is doing here is making a trade-off. It's a really bad deal, but it feels good in the moment. As you can see here, the short-term gain is that feeling of relief. You've dodged the anxiety, you've protected your ego. But wow, the long-term cost is huge. Your goals never become reality, regret starts to pile up, and you end up completely stuck. Okay, so this all sounds pretty bleak, but there is a way out. How do we break this cycle? Well, it's not about lowering your ambitions. It's about completely changing your relationship with effort, with progress, and, yes, with failure. It's about finding a much healthier path forward. So the way out really involves a few key mindset shifts. Instead of being obsessed with a perfect final product, you start celebrating the consistent effort of just showing up every day. You move from this mindset where every single task is a test to prove yourself to a growth mindset where every task is a chance to improve yourself. You stop trying to build the whole cathedral in one go and just focus on laying one single brick really well. And, maybe most importantly, you start to see failure not as a judgment on who you are, but as useful data for the next try. So I'll just leave you with this question to chew on. We spend so much time chasing perfection, thinking it's the only thing that matters. But what if good enough for today is actually way better than a perfect that never ever happens? What if the messy, imperfect thing you actually create is infinitely more valuable than the flawless masterpiece that's forever locked away in your imagination? It's something to think about. That's all for this one.